Hello everyone. As in our last lecture, we studied in depth about crime scene reconstruction. And in today's lecture, it is a very long series of lectures, and we will be studying about the types of crime scene reconstruction. So, in the subject of crime scene investigation, the crime scene reconstruction plays a vital role as it is generally the most intrinsic part of forensic investigation. Although many computer designed softwares are now available, they help a lot in construction of a crime scene with a three-dimensional space. Earlier, this facility was not available and it used to pose a lot of difficulty for the individuals. Outcomes as expected, fundamentals and applications of this particular topic are employed in forensic construction or reconstruction of any crime scene. So, crime scene reconstruction. What is the main thing and what are the things that are included in it? Okay, now we you already might be knowing something, but now we will be studying those things in detail, in depth. What are the things that are included? What are the things that play a very crucial and significant role, and how these things are done. Crime scene reconstruction is the process of determining or eliminating the events and actions that occurred at the crime scene. Okay, so what is the main purpose? The main purpose is to recreate the whole scenario. Okay, how that particular incident happened. Okay, what was the series of incidents that took place before the main event? Okay, that occurred at the crime scene through analysis of the crime scene pattern, the location and position of the physical evidence, and the laboratory examination of the physical evidence. Reconstruction not only involves scientific scene analysis, interpretation of the scene pattern evidence, and laboratory examination of physical evidence, but also involves systematic study of related information and logical formulation of theory. So there are several aspects that are discussed here, and to which we should pay a lot of attention. So, what are the things that they are talking about? Involves scientific analysis of the crime scene. Okay, where you are talking about the techniques of photography, techniques of videography, marking of evidences in a series, and all those things, right? And interpretation of the scene pattern evidence. So, in what pattern the evidences are there? Okay, evidences are scattered all over the place, or evidences are present near to the dead body, or how the examination of doors and windows took place, what were the uh, final results out them, and after that, laboratory examination of physical evidence. But also, it was systematic study. So, you also have to focus on what are the laboratory test results are showing. Okay, what they are concluding of your physical evidence. So every time you have to make sure that everything is up to the mark, and you have to carry everything in a series, in a very systematic and scientific manner, right? Laboratory examination of physical evidence, but also involves systematic study of related information and logical formation of truth. So every time you have to carry out the elaboration and explanation in a very systematic way, step by step, concluding everything laboratory examination of physical evidence, interpretation, patterns of evidence. Okay, systematic study. Nothing is done on a random basis, or nothing is done on that is based on mutual facts. Everything is solid and has a logical reasoning behind it. So, what is the main importance of crime scene reconstruction? You should understand it here, right? It is often useful to determine the actual course of a crime by limiting the possibilities that resulted in crime scene or physical evidence as encountered. Okay, so what was the actual course? Okay, what were the possibilities in that very particular crime scene regarding to the physical evidence? The possible need to reconstruct the crime is one major reason for maintaining the integrity of the crime scene. So every time you have to maintain the integrity of the crime scene. Your crime scene should not be disturbed by external uh, disturbances. It should be understood that reconstruction is different from reenactment or recreation or criminal profiling. Okay, because reconstruction is somewhat you are going to show what had happened. Okay, it is not like reenactment of the crime scene or recreation of the crime scene. Because under reconstruction, everything looks very realistic because it is always combining all the data and all the test results and all the information that is included for that very particular crime scene. Reenactment is, uh, in general, refers to having the victim, suspect, witness, or other individual reenactment uh, event that produce the crime scene or the physical evidence based on their knowledge of the crime. Okay, what type of statements they were giving? Okay, what were their statements and what they were saying again and again? What had happened in reality, and how did that very crime took place? Recreation is to replace the necessary items or actions back at the crime scene through original scene documentation. So, recreation means you are creating the whole crime scene again. It is very different from reconstruction. So, you have to place each and everything back in that place uh, where they were originally documented by the forensic experts. Criminal profiling is a process based on psychological and statistical analysis of crime scene. So, criminal profiling means upon which the psychological and statistical analysis of the crime scene. So, who was the criminal? Uh, he or she is having a history of such things, or is he a professional who do things for money? And all those factors they play a major role, which is used to determine the general characteristics of most likely suspect of the crime. Okay, because you have to observe the criminal as a subject, and you have to see the general characteristics and parts of his or her personality. So, what type of things he or she was doing there, and how they behaved, and how they acted, and how they committed that particular crime. So, you all have to observe the things in a very particular manner to uh, able to match the details that are present in your forensic record. Each of these types of analysis may be helpful for certain aspects of a criminal investigation. However, these types of analysis are rarely useful in the solution of a crime. So, every type of analysis, every type of investigation is really very useful because certain aspects of criminal investigation they also require some additional details. But these type of analysis are rarely used in the solution of the crime. But it is necessary for the forensic investigator to completely understand the persona and personality of the criminal. Okay, because they always have to enter inside the head of the criminal. Okay, what he or she was thinking, what was present there in their mind. Okay, how things change, what are the problematic features they are having. Okay, if they are having any psychological issue or if they are having any other difficulty, right? Reconstruction is based on the ability to make observation at the scene, the scientific ability to examine physical evidence, and the use of logical approaches to theory formulation. Okay, so you should be able to examine the evidence in a very scientific manner, and you know how the things are tested, and you know how basically the things are dealt with. So, and apart from that, you have to use some solid logical approaches to the theory and the formulation which you are designing about that very particular crime scene reconstruction. So, basic principles for physical evidence and reconstruction. What are those basic principles that you must follow when you are trying to reconstruct a crime scene? Okay, let's see. The foundation of crime scene reconstruction is established by following the basic principles used in the forensic examination of physical evidence. What are those? The Locard theory of transfer is the fundamental basis uh, of any forensic analysis, although the lack of transfer has limited the value in forensic laboratory examination. It still has significant importance in crime scene reconstruction. So, following the Locard theory and its fundamental basics and for forensic analysis, so following those theories and following his principles, so forensic laboratory examination combined with all those things, they produce a different scenario for the crime scene. So we should always follow them in a very particular manner. Now, recognition. Any type of forensic analysis usually starts from recognition of potential evidence. You must recognize the potential evidence and what were the essential details that were involved in it, and separation of this form from those items that have no evidential value. So, any common object with no forensic value should be discarded. Only the things that have very good evidence value and very good forensic value should be saved at the very crime scene. Okay. Laboratory analysis and comparisons of physical evidence are used to identify objects, substances, and materials and to trace its origin. Okay. So you must identify the objects, you must identify the substances and materials along with its place of origin, where it was discovered and how it was discovered, what it is its value when it comes to evidence, is its value when it comes to the forensic investigation. Once an item is identified, it is then compared with known reference material or standards. So, for example, a bullet casing has been recovered or seen at the crime scene. So, the forensic experts have examined it according to the gun ballistics. But in the long run, what is the real value of that very particular reference material at the crime scene. You must understand that because sometimes that very bullet casing or cartridge casing would belong to the bullet from which the homicide took place or the suicide took place. Depending upon the outcome of comparison between the question sample and the known samples, one of then one can then attempt to individualize the evidence and determine its role. So eventually you can place everything in order and everything according to the value from to which or from which they are known to be highly useful and highly effective as a forensic evidence. Once the crime scene appears, has been studied, and examination of physical evidence carried out, the crime or case can then be reconstructed. Okay, first of all, you must understand listing of all the physical evidences that have been carried out, and the crime or cases can be then reconstructed with the help of proper data analysis and proper evidence analysis. Any type of reconstruction generally starts from recognition. Okay, any type of reconstruction starts from recognition. So you must able to recognize what are the things that are included in the reconstruction. Unless the potential evidence can be recognized, no further reconstruction can be carried out. So you must identify each and everything in a very particular manner and with intrinsic details and their role that they play in that very crime scene. Okay. Although the examination of a macroscopical scene or a microscopical scene is different. However, the general approach remains the same. So the things arises when you are what do you say analyzing the place of crime in a very macroscopic manner. Okay, and then you are just observing the things superficially, and when you are observing the things in its extensive detail, then also they play lot of role in your forensic investigation. Once potential physical evidence has been recognized, the investigator should always make every possible effort to properly document, collect, and preserve the physical evidence. If a question arises, the investigator should always contact an expert in the field before any alteration of evidence is done. So every time you see anything that is out of the ordinary, you must call its expert because he can very easily determine that what are the things that are included in it, how one can deal with those things. Okay, sometimes things can really be uh, dangerous. Sometimes things might be having some difficulty because if you touch them, you might contaminate them. So this is important because most conditional evidence and pattern evidence can be easily altered or destroyed. Okay, so because some of the sensitive evidences they need to be preserved properly. So because if they are not treated properly, if they are not preserved properly, what will happen? They can get very easily destroyed. It is very important to emphasize that once such evidence has been altered, the ability to conduct a reconstruct will be limited. Because you must understand the crime is a series of events that are linked all together by a number of evidences. So, in the long run, if you are dealing with such conditions and they are the evidence have been disturbed, so in the process of reconstruction you will readily be able not able to proceed ahead. You will somewhere stop in middle of nowhere or in middle between the process, because all the series of the crime scene, they involve a lot of uh, combination. They involve a series of events. Because of them, they just move along in series of events that subsequently led to the very particular crime or crime scene. So everything should be understood clearly, and everything has to be recorded properly. Because of that, there's no reconstruction possible. If evidences have been disturbed, if no proper data analysis or sketching took place, combined with videography and photography. Identification. Identification is the comparison process which utilizes the class characteristics of a standard object or known substance to compare with uh, the evidential item collected from the crimes. So you must understand the class characteristics of standard object or know the substance to compare with evidential item collected from the crime scene. Like if the crime has been committed by a hammer, okay, victim has been killed by hammer, but that hammer has been uh, subject to such a brutality, it might suffer some damage also. Okay, it might have some blood stains also, and some part of DNA on it also. So, how we are going to see and compare its data? We will purchase the very same hammer, and we will compare the two types of hammer, one from which the crime has been committed and one from which the standard object that has been purchased from the market. So what is the difference between those items? So this type of comparison and study and analysis is also very crucial when it comes to crime scene investigation. By comparing the physical properties, morphological properties, chemical properties, and biological properties. So I have already told you, like any object that serve as the evidence from the crime scene should also be compared with the standard object that is available. Okay, so as a result of that, the morphological properties and comparison for identification purposes is very useful when you reconstruct a crime scene. Even the identification of persons also start with the same logical process of physical type of identification that uses properties such as height, weight, size, race, and hair and eye color, etc. to include or eliminate some. So you might have seen in movies also, okay, the person has seen the criminal, okay, but there's no physical evidence or no video or photograph. So what they will do, they will define the how that very person looked like, what was his height, what type of hair he had, okay, what type of beard he had, what was the skin color, eye color, or anything out of ordinary they saw about him. So this is how the sketches are prepared, and they are compared with the data that is already available. Then more specific measurements can be carried out to individualize a person. Okay. So what were the details that made him or her look different from other individuals? There was anything out of the ordinary? Okay, anything that was unusual? The types of physical measurements are referred to as anthropometry, a system developed by Alfonso uh, Bertillon in early 1900s. However, if one identifies a friend or relative, one journal used a combination of class characteristics and special features, individualizing characteristics of a person, and then compare them to a mental picture of a person. So, if you know the person with those identification marks, then the process of comparison starts. Okay, what are the similarities? Uh, are there any differences that are available? Okay, what were the natural height? So all these things are made, and mutual comparison of the facts and data takes place. This process of comparison is the same process used to identify a hair, weapon, or clothing. When an item of physical evidence is identified but cannot be truly individualized, it will always have similar class characteristics. For this reason, statement about how similar these characteristics are can sometimes be made. Okay, if anything is observed in physical evidences that cannot be identified on individual basis, then mutual studies are carried out. So, in order to compare their characteristics individually, the degree of similarity of particular evidence or characteristics depends on many factors and varies from being fairly easily calculated, as in the case of blood groups, to being limited to only broad estimates of similarity. So every time you have to see the characteristics and the factors that are linked with that very particular evidence, and how the blood groups or any other thing is being limited only to broad estimates of similarity. Individualization. Individualization is a unique process to forensic science. It refers to demonstration that a particular sample is unique among members of the same class. Okay, if you are studying about bullet casing and there is some dent outside of the ordinary in the bullet casing, or any markings that represent that this particular thing was different, then it can serve different among the members of the same class. It may also refer to the demonstration that a questioned piece of evidence from a crime scene and a particular known sample of evidence have a common origin. So they can very easily demonstrate what are the origins of that very particular object and how that object made itself different from others. So this is how one can understand the evidences, how they are different from all the other types of evidences, and how individually they represent certain characteristics. The nature of these individual characteristics varies from one type of evidence to another, but forensic scientists try to take advantage of them in efforts to individualize a piece of physical evidence. Okay, so forensic scientists sometimes they can take advantage because their efforts in order to individualize a piece of physical evidence and one type of evidence to another. How they are different, and how different uh, what level of difference they show when it comes to individuality. Some types of evidence can be truly individualized, but with some other types, an approach to the goal of individualization is possible. So sometimes you can individually identify the certain differential characteristics, and sometimes it cannot be. So they do a lot of difficulty They do pose a lot of difficulty. These type of individualization are referred to as a partial, and in some cases they are nothing more than refined identification, such as genetic markers, determination from a blood stain, DNA typing of semen evidence, or trace element analysis of paint chips. So, what they are saying that if you are going to analyze anything in a very clean manner and substantially, along with the proper investigation, then you might see the variations that are present on those evidences, because they also serve as the most important thing when it comes to the crime scene investigation and reconstruction. The term identification is sometimes used to mean personal identification, the individualization of a person. How that person is different from others, what type of marking he or she is having on the clothes or on the face. Is that person is handicapped from somewhere or has anything different from others? Fingertips, for example, can be used to identify an individual. The terminology is unfortunately, since this is really an individualization. So every person on this planet has got his own fingerprints. Okay, no fingerprints are similar. Likewise, dental evidence or dental records may be used by forensic odontologists in making personal individualization in situations where dead bodies cannot be readily identified, otherwise, such as in mass disaster or in case of fire and explosion. So, what they do, uh, odontologists, they just analyze the situation and they prepare the record of genetic evidence, because sometimes the body is not at all in a condition to be identified even by the family members also. It has been damaged badly or it has been burned so bad that you cannot even individualize and identify the face of the individual. So in that case, they take samples of DNA from the teeth and they do a genetic profiling. And because of that only, the people are able to identify, okay, this person is so and so, this person is so and so. Very easy. The identification and individualization analysis of physical evidence and the conclusion drawn from them are very important ingredients in the final reconstruction. So such analysis and procedures are really very helpful in the final reconstruction of the crime scene. So, what are the things that come under the reconstruction? Okay, now coming on to the forensic reconstruction. Reconstruction is based on the results of crime scene examination in laboratory analysis and other independent sources of information to reconstruct case events. So, depending on the factors and information available from the evidences, the crime scene examination and analysis takes place. All the reconstruction. Reconstruction often involves the use of inductive and deductive logic, statistical data, information from the crime scene, pattern analysis, and laboratory analysis results on a variety of physical evidence. Reconstruction can be a very complex task. Okay, reconstruction is not at all a easy thing. Linking many types of physical evidences, plain pattern information, analytical results, investigative information, and other documentary and testimonials evidences into a complete entity. So, The forensic scene reconstruction procedure that is carried out by expert forensic investigators. It is not a easy task. It is a very complex task, and it do involve a lot of evidences and physical and chemical and all those evidence analysis combined with the stain pattern and other crucial things that play a major role in the investigation of evidence. The developing fields of artificial intelligence and the expert system have opened up a new dimension in the reconstruction of the crime scene. These systems allow forensic scientists modeling and representation of laboratory analysis results. So these softwares they do allow the uh, to people or forensic experts to correctly represent the laboratory analysis, reasoning and enacting of a crime scene, logic comparing and profiling of a suspect, and make logical decisions concerning the case. So logically, they compile the data that has come from laboratory analysis and their own studies. They combine that very particular data and they put it in a software that helps a lot in the reconstruction process. Advances in hardware and software have added systemic problem solving to forensic scientists' repertoire. So they are able to put all or they are able to upload all the data that is present there, and because of that only they are able to help the scientists to and forensic experts to study the case. Computer technology allows communication between the user and the expert system. In a case, each is helping the other to solve a forensic problem. So now, because of the computer technology, those experts can communicate with each other, share the data, and see the analysis and results of analysis. Reconstruction are often desirable in criminal cases in which eyewitness evidence is absent or unreliable. Okay, reconstruction is also needed or required when the eyewitnesses are not at all available. Okay, or they are changing their statement again and again. They are important in many other types of cases too, such as automobile and airplane accidents, fire, and arson investigation and major disasters. So, a crime scene reconstruction is very important part nowadays of forensic procedures, as many of the experts have started utilizing these laboratory results along with their own uh, evidence collection pattern and data, and compiling all that information and uploading that in a computer system along with the softwares has enabled them a lot to see the situation and can create the whole scene inside the computer. So this is where we are going to end our lecture today. We will continue this long series in the next time. Thank you for listening to us.